Welcome to Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. And right now, I am in the midst of a series called The Plagues of Egypt. And God even spoke about the plague today, and I'm not going to reveal the title until further down, because the title is a little twisty to understand. But today I'm going to talk about the first plague, and the first plague of Egypt, but it is not one of the common 10 plagues of Egypt that we know. And here with this first plague of Egypt, I'm actually going to play the audio instead of me reading the chapter. I want to play the audio from the Biblespeaker.com. And if you would, AV, if you would just play. Now, this is Genesis chapter 20. This is the story of Abraham and the king called Abimelech. It's about 3 minutes long to play this.
Genesis chapter 20. Abraham traveled from there toward the land of the south and lived between Kadesh and Shur. He lived as a foreigner in Gerar. Abraham said about Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream of the night and said to him, "Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." Now Abimelech had not come near her. He said, "Lord, will you kill even a righteous nation? Didn't he tell me, 'She's my sister'? Even she herself said, 'He is my brother.' In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands have I done this." God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that in the integrity of your heart you have done this, and I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore I didn't allow you to touch her. Now therefore restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. If you don't restore her, know for sure that you will die, you and all who are yours." Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their ear. The men were very scared. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? How have I sinned against you that you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You have done deeds to me that ought not to be done." Abimelech said to Abraham, "What did you see that you have done this thing?" Abraham said, "Because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place. They will kill me for my wife's sake. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. When God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, 'This is your kindness which you shall show to me. Everywhere that we go, say of me, he is my brother.' Abimelech took sheep and cattle, male servants and female servants, and gave them to Abraham and restored Sarah his wife to him. Abimelech said, 'Behold, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you.' To Sarah he said, 'Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, it is for you a covering of the eyes to all that are with you. In front of all you are vindicated.' Abraham prayed to God. God healed Abimelech and his wife and his female servants, and they bore children. For the Lord had closed up tight all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife."
Now, this is the story of Abimelech and Abraham and Sarah. And a couple of things I want you to just get from this. First of all, God told Abimelech in a dream, "If you touch that woman, you a dead man." Do you know, people, there's some things in life we just don't need to touch? But Abimelech said, "Look, Lord, I didn't know. There are some things you don't need to touch, and you don't know you don't need to touch them. There are some things that God will show you, and you may not even understand the why. Because Abraham had not told Abimelech this was his wife. He told Abimelech this was his sister. So Abimelech was operating in earthly knowledge, but God knew a higher level. But that's not the first plague of Egypt. I want to back up to chapter 12 of Genesis, and this is 25 years earlier. The same man with the same wife with the same lie. Do you know, oftentimes, people and it's 25 years later, they the same person doing the same thing with the same lying habit. Have you ever noticed that about some? We've learned in life, patterns have a tendency of repeating. And if you don't have a change of heart and spirit, folk who were lying and doing stuff 25 years ago still doing that same line and that same stuff 25 years later. So this is 25 years earlier when Abraham was 75. Now you would think you ought to know better at 75. But no, food has no age limit on it. So here in Genesis chapter 12, go ahead and play that chapter from the Bible speaker.
Genesis chapter 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Leave your country and your relatives and your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you." So Abram went, as the Lord had told him. Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abram took Sarai his wife, Lot his brother's son, all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they went to go into the land of Canaan. They entered into the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Sichem, to the oak of Moreh. The Canaanites were in the land then. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "I will give this land to your offspring." He built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. He left from there to go to the mountain on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the Lord's name. Abram traveled, still going on toward the south. There was a famine in the land. Abram went down into Egypt to live as a foreigner there, for the famine was severe in the land. When he had come near to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai his wife, "See now, I know that you are a beautiful woman to look at. It will happen when the Egyptians see you that they will say, 'This is his wife.' They will kill me, but they will save you alive. Please say that you're my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that my soul may live because of you." When Abram had come into Egypt, Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. The princes of Pharaoh saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. He dealt well with Abram for her sake. He had sheep, cattle, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. The Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this that you have done to me? Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She's my sister,' so that I took her to be my wife? Now, therefore, see your wife, take her, and go your way." Pharaoh commanded men concerning him, and they escorted him away with his wife and all that he had.
This was the first plague of Egypt. It was in the house of the palace of Pharaoh. It was the first time the word plague is even mentioned in the Bible, period. So it was the first plague of the Bible, period. In the palace of the king of the land of Pharaoh. And God plagued Pharaoh's house because he had another man's wife. But that's not the real main point of it. The main point of it is God had told Abimelech, dealing with that same situation 25 years later, if you had touched this woman, you and your whole household would die. So I'm assuming the same penalty that would have come on Abimelech, who didn't know, would have also come on Pharaoh. But yet God sent plagues into Pharaoh's house. The Bible never said that God told Pharaoh the plagues were connected to Sarah, but somehow he knew. Somehow he knew. Look, this woman is coming here. Sometimes somebody come into your world and all hell break loose because that person is coming in. God has not spoken to you that it's because of this person. But all of a sudden you got somebody new in your life, and now all kind of mess is starting to happen in your world, and you can somehow relate. None of this, my life was, Pharaoh was doing just fine. And all of a sudden, he brings this new woman in, and all of a sudden, the Bible doesn't even say what kind of plagues. It did say what happened to Abimelech. All of the wombs were shut up in the house of Abimelech. So he had wives and concubines. None of them could get pregnant. And they were shut up, and they were not opened until Abraham prayed for Abimelech. And then the wombs were opened and the children began to flow. The Bible didn't even say what was happening to Pharaoh. All it said was plagues, plural. So it wasn't just one thing. You ought to just say it wasn't just one thing. See, usually when somebody that's not supposed to be in your world comes into your world, it's not just one thing. They will often bring a host of things that will begin to happen, and you will somehow put this thing together that my world has now started to turn upside down because I've let something or someone into my world who was not supposed to be. And God sent plagues into Pharaoh's house that if he had not sent the plagues, Pharaoh would have been killed. And I entitled this second part of the plagues of Egypt, the plague that saves your life. Sometimes all of the things that you think are negative that come into your world, they're not negative. God has sent them into your world to save your life. God has sent them into your world as a stepping stone. God has sent them into your world to keep you from being destroyed. Right now, I had met with a gentleman, an engineer, an audio engineer, who's building a music studio out at my office. And we went over everything, and we kind of went through our history. He was 18 days younger than I am. And he's been in the music business since he was 15 years old. I said, well, you probably were in the music business, no question, when we were in the music business. And I pulled out one. He said, yeah, I remember that. That's you. I said, yeah, that's me. And then I told him, God would not let us succeed in that business because if we had succeeded, it would have destroyed us. And he said, yeah, I understand that, because he then began to tell me the story of his big movie star. All of you would know him if I called out the name. And he said, this is what the public said happened. But I was there. That ain't what happened. This what happened. It destroyed them. Sometimes God will send what you think is a curse and a plague. And it is not to destroy you. It is not to hinder you. It's to save your life. If we had made it big in that music business and we had been, number one and had all these big apps, first of all, stuff start coming at you that sometimes you're just not equipped to handle. Now, we have our famous musical guest, Brother Jarvis Williams. Brother Williams, you look like you could handle all that stuff. You're very spiritually matured. You're grounded. But I'll tell you, I had some stuff coming at me that had it multiplied. I'm just not sure how well Pastor could have handled it then. I'm just not 100% sure I can handle it now. So stuff comes at you, and often God may have to limit some things that you may think is a hindrance just to save your life. And see, both Pharaoh and Abimelech, after this had happened, and after they saw what happened, and after Pharaoh saw the plagues lifted, and after Abimelech saw the wombs open, and after Abimelech went back and reflected on his dream that he had, you see, each one of them had to have a different level of God speaking to them. Abimelech just had a dream. And the dream explained it. Now, all the wombs were shut up in the house, but Pharaoh had plagues. Some of us have to be spoken to a little bit rougher than others. Some can hear the word of God in a whisper, and we will heed it. Others have to have a slap that just knocks us flat on our face before we will listen to what God has to say to us. But I could imagine that both Abimelech and Pharaoh had to reflect, and they had to look up to heaven, and they had to say these words: if I had slept with that woman. Men, I don't want you to say anything. Don't say it. Don't say anything. What I want you to do is just roll your eye. I want you to think in the back of your head, if I had slept with that woman. And most men know exactly who that is. But God had protected you, and he kept you out of that situation. And women, I want you. Don't say anything out loud. Don't say a word. Don't say a word. I just want you to just look up. Just ease up. Just look up just like this. And I just want you to think to yourself, if I had slept with that man. And everybody, at least the vast majority, somebody immediately pops into your head. But God blocked the thing, and at the time, you thought it was a curse. You thought it was a plague. You thought it was just God not giving you what you wanted. But it was the plague that saved your life. And this was the first plague that came into Egypt. And it affected kings. And you see, there's a principle in this. When there's one person in your world who is not supposed to be there, it brings a plague. I've seen this in business, and I can't even logically explain it. I have seen, and the people in the have seen, we've had one person there who was not supposed to be there. Their spirit just didn't mesh, and somehow it held the company down, and they were not in a position to hold the company down. They usually weren't in sales. They weren't in decision-making position. They were just in the, it was like Jonah. You know, Jonah was not doing anything on the ship. He was just on the ship. He wasn't steering. He wasn't raising the sails. He wasn't swabbing the deck. He was just on the ship sleep. So he was doing nothing. But the wrong person in your world can bring a plague, can cause barrenness, can cause death. The wrong person in your world can mess you up. And sometimes God will have to send a plague so that you understand, I need to get this person, this thing, this behavior, I need to get this out of my life. And sometimes he'll have to send a plague, but the plague is not a curse. The plague is not negative. The plague saves your life. Because if they had slept with that woman, and see, there are some of you right now, and you just, Lord, and I just thank God. God protected me with a lot of the things I did do. But he kept me from a whole lot more than I could have done. And I just thank God, Lord, I thank you. I ain't sleep with that woman. There's been some cases of that. I thank you, Lord. Thank you for protecting. And see, there have been some things that you really wanted. You really wanted these things. See, when we were in the music business, we wanted that success. We worked hard at that, but God put a block in it. And it had to be a prophet came into my studio one day. He said, God says you'll never be successful in this business with this. All this equipment is going to be used for God. And when I heard it because of the record of the prophet, I believed it and changed. But if we had a guidance, see, sometimes you can get what you want and you lose what you had. See, if I'd have gotten what I wanted, I'd have lost what I had. It would have destroyed me. And what I thought was a plague, what I thought was a curse, what I thought was a negative block, God was using to save my life. And there's so many of you like that right now. And some of you, you've got a Sarai in your world. Something that belongs to someone else or something that's simply not supposed to be there. It's either someone or something or some habit. And you got this thing in your world. And God is putting a barrenness in your world until you get rid of the thing that's not supposed to be there. But you've got to have a realization. See, one thing about Abimelech and Pharaoh, they were kings. They were leaders. They were basically some pretty wise men. They were well trained. Pharaoh had the sense enough to know the reason that I am being cursed, the reason that these plagues are in my house is because of this right here. See, the first rule of fixing anything is proper diagnosis. If you've got some stuff going wrong in your world, first thing you need to figure out is why. And usually, the reason the flesh comes up with is not the real reason, because the reason the flesh comes up with always blames someone else, even the devil. See, the devil wasn't even in any of this. We always blame someone. You got to look internally and say, what am I doing? What have I opened the door to? What have I allowed? And that's a real good principle about even letting anybody or anything in your world. First thing you need to ask, Lord, do I need to let them into my world? Before you even start dating anybody, you need to pray about that thing. See, if they'd have just asked God, God just told them from the start, don't bring this woman in your house. You know, it's a whole lot easier to keep a woman out of your house than to get them out of your house. Y'all understand that principle? It's not real deep stuff, but it's very true, and it's very simple. It's a whole lot easier to keep a man out of your house than to get a man out of your house. And sometimes if you get too wrapped up with the wrong person, not only will you not be able to get them out of the house, they get the whole house. You understand what I mean? So if you need to go to God first. And if you want to keep them plagues out of your world, go to God first and ask God, Lord, do I need to let this or them into my world? And if you get a communication with God, God will tell you up front. Don't fool with them. Keep them out of your world. And you won't know why God says this, because often you cannot see the real person and the real reason. You can't see it. See, Sarah was just beautiful. That's why Abraham, he said, everywhere we go, don't tell him you my wife, because you're too pretty. You're pretty as I don't know what. And these men will kill me for you. And look, Abraham was 75, which meant Sarah was 65. And she was still drop dead gorgeous. He said, don't tell anybody you my wife, because they will kill me just to get you. Which means this woman was so, it said the princes of Pharaoh just went and told Pharaoh, it's this woman in the country. She just, woo, man, you got to see this woman. You got to see this woman. So when Pharaoh saw the woman, he didn't even ask God, because he wanted that woman. See, sometimes we don't even ask God about stuff when it's stuff we really want, because we don't want to hear God saying you can't have that. We don't even ask God. We don't even think about, see, what we'll say is, thank you, Lord. You don't even ask God. You're thanking God for something he never meant for you to have because you didn't even ask him to start with. So had Pharaoh and had Abimelech just asked God, God would have spoken. He would have told them through the prophet or a dream or however, this is not a woman for you. Don't touch this woman. But he sent a plague in both of their palaces that saved their lives. And some of you right now, you've got plagues or you've dealt with plagues. Some of the things that you think were so negative, but they really were not. They have saved your life. They have kept you from being destroyed. They have given you strength and insight, and there's so many things. I'm going to even go into some of that in the next part of this first plague, the plague that saved your life, part 2. And we're struggling with some of these plagues right now, not understanding they're for our benefit and they're saving our lives. There's some deep revelation in the second part of this. But the first thing I want you to get out of this is just this. Number one, there may be some things in your world that you need to get out of to open doors to blessings that God has for you. And number two, before you let things into your world, pray about it and ask God, because it's a lot easier to keep it out than it is to get it out. I thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word. You can go to brothersoftheword.com and you can listen to the entire series, The Plagues of Egypt. And as I go through each one of the 13 or more plagues, there are more than 10, and I will explain how they relate to our modern day world, the spiritual principle behind each one of the plagues, because even today we're still dealing with the same plagues. It's just like Abimelech, and it's just like Pharaoh. We're still dealing with other folks' wives and husbands. That has not changed. So the same plagues that plagued Egypt are still plaguing us today. And I want you plague-free and curse-free. Go and listen to the entire series at brothersoftheword.com. Thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word.
From Brothers of